was out there trying to get that woman to shut the damn hole.
It was a horn.
It was a,
We'll call the meeting to order.
So first we're gonna do minutes.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
minutes from last meeting.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting on March 5th?
I'll make the motion.
I second the motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the last meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we go to the old business. Third and final reading of an ordinance authorizing the design, acquisition, construction, and equipment of a public sewage line of the Charlestown Building Commission, and the financing of the costs not otherwise provided thereof through the issuance of not more than $16 million in aggregate, oh Lord, I've lost it, principal amount of lease revenue bonds, series of 2018 West Virginia Infrastructure Fund, providing for the rights and remedies of and security of for the registered owners of such bonds, authorizing execution and delivery of all documents relating to the issue of such bonds, approving, ratifying, and confirming a loan agreement relating to the bonds, authorizing the sale and providing for the terms and provisions of such bonds, and adopting other provisions relating thereto.
Make a motion that we bring the motion off the table from the last meeting.
Bring it off the table.
Right.
I guess that needs a second.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Well, we have a motion and a second to bring the minutes of the last meeting off of the table. All in favor?
Aye.
So, it's okay?
Discussion.
Now, we can move on to discussion of the,
So just with Robert's rules, we have, is the motion that was on the table, from the last meeting is now off the table, and so now
That motion has been brought to us, and now we discuss that motion.
now we're discussing the motion from the last meeting.
Already,
Thank you.
you've already had a motion
In a second.
second to approve the third and final reading. Went into discussion, we went to executive session,
Okay.
table, now we brought it back, so discussion can continue at this point. I think we've got Mr. Hennessy here, we'll talk you through various parts of it, and then we can pick up the discussion from there.
Great, thank you very much. So what I wanted to do is provide an update on what happened at last night's City Council meeting, provide a brief overview of the two primary financing options that would be used to construct the Route 9 sewer line, and to recommend that the Building Commission follow the lead of City Council and approve the bond ordinance. So at last night's City Council meeting, for those who weren't present, City Council voted 5-3 to approve an ordinance authorizing the Building Commission to construct the Route 9 sewer line and to enter into a lease agreement to pay for the line. And basically, that will be paid for using the net revenues from the operation of the line to repay the state over a period of 25 years, with the forgiveness clause included for any principal remaining at the end of the term. So for more than 7 months now, City Council has been researching and debating the merits of the Route 9 sewer project. During that time, we have asked the Building Commission to be patient and wait for the outcome of the policy discussion before acting on the bond ordinance. It was staff's intent to allow the city's elected officials, those representing the citizens of Charlestown, to determine the policy direction and then frame the Building Commission's role as a transactional partner to help the city achieve its objectives. As I said last night at City Council meeting, we are asking the Building Commission to act in its traditional role, just as it has for other significant projects like Charles Washington Hall and the new municipal building at 661 South George, where it served as the city's conduit for financing. The decision to proceed with those projects was directed by City Council, and you were asked to perform a transactional role in financing the projects and managing the construction and renovations. You are being asked to do exactly the same with this bond ordinance. We understand you are an independent body with the right to make your own choice on the bond, as you were advised over 6 months ago. That said, staff is recommending you approve the bond financing to help City Council carry out its will on this project. So I'll try to do my best to summarize what the discussion has been over the last 7 months, and I'm sure that I won't do it complete justice, but let me try. So for over 7 months, City Council has conducted an exhaustive analysis of the project. There are some members of City Council in the room today, and they should be commended for the time and effort that they have put into understanding this complex project. Despite the vote, I hope that people will understand that they are true public servants, and they are doing what they think was in the best interest of the City of Charlestown. During their due diligence, they studied several dimensions of the project, including the environmental impacts, the city's obligation to provide utility service and accept industrial waste, financing options to construct the line and their implications on ratepayers, the role of the Building Commission in questions of indebtedness, the capacity of the city's wastewater treatment facility, the cost and economic impact of various design and engineering options, responsibility for covering design costs, legal risks and government transparency, the relation of this project to Flowing Springs, and the equalization of rates for the newly consolidated utility system, and the list goes on and on and on. But in my view, what emerged appeared to be an understanding that Rockwell would eventually get sewer service, but the question remained, who would pay for it, and how should it be financed? There is a clear sentiment from some that despite the legal obligation to provide, Rockwell should pay for its own line, and that a limited Rockwell-only line would essentially restrict or maybe even prevent future heavy industrial growth in the northern part of the county. Others felt that if the city was obligated to provide service, the more prudent route to follow is acceptance of the state financing package to limit any near-term impacts on ratepayers and any future risk. This probably oversimplifies the issues, but I think it gets at the heart of the final debate. With that in mind, let me spend just a few minutes talking about the two primary financing options for the Route 9 sewer line. The first is the state financing, which is the bond ordinance that is in front of you today. This option provides zero-interest financing for 25 years to design and construct the line. And with that, I'll make a note, we want to absolutely be certain to say that it's 25 years. There's been some discussion back and forth. I think the understanding of council is that it will be a 25-year term. The estimated cost of the project is $10.5 million. The bond ordinance that you have in front of you today speaks to up to $16 million. We will only borrow what is needed to complete the line. Net revenues from the operation of the line will be used to repay debt, with any outstanding principal forgiven at the end of the term. This line will provide capacity of approximately 900,000 gallons of flow per day, of which about 1/3 will be consumed by Rockwell and other existing projects in the region that will be redirected to the new line. And I've got a copy of the map that shows the route, the proposed route. At the end of the financing term, all proceeds from the line flow to CTUB, and it begins to generate net cash flow for the combined waterworks and sewer system. So that's the state financing package. The other primary option for financing the sewer is through the use of Rule 5.5. This is a PSC rule, Public Service Commission rule, for mainline extension agreements in which the developer fronts most of the money to construct the line, and the developer receives a reimbursement for the annual revenues from the new construction. There is a responsibility for the city to provide a share associated with that, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. The option, the Rule 5.5 option, can take a couple of different forms, mainline, alternate mainline, but for the sake of this discussion, let's assume that Rockwell constructs a mainline project that is only large enough to serve their needs. The cost of the sewer line is not yet known, but will be soon. The last estimate was $9 million. So the immediate cost to the city, if this option is pursued, would be approximately $325,000 for the construction share of the project, as noted earlier, and then the ongoing operation and maintenance costs that are foregone while the developer is being repaid. CTUB indicates that they would have to finance the cost share, and that any alternative to that approach will delay the equalization of rates of the consolidated system. CTUB estimates that these costs would equate to an increase in utility rates of up to 42 cents per 1,000 gallons of use per month, or just over $1.25. As I noted a little bit earlier, it'll ultimately depend on what is the true cost of the line. At this point, we don't know that. This estimate is based on the assumption that the line costs $10.5 million. It is also fair to note that at some point, though, the net cash flow turns positive, and there is some argument whether or not this increase could or would go away. It's also fair to note that net cash under the state financing option would not turn positive for the system until after the state bond is repaid, although the city is being fully compensated during this period of time for all of its O&M expenses. There are also other known improvement projects for the system that will now require additional financing because the Route 9 sewer line was not built to accommodate additional flow. Again, if they follow the Rule 5.5 and they build it to a Rockwell-only specification. Flow that the city has already committed to providing. So the city has committed through the Flowing Springs project to the Public Service Commission to provide additional flow in that area. So the bottom line is the variables for the Route 9 sewer line project and the future of the combined waterworks and sewerage system are numerous. The future cash flows to the Charlestown system are probably greater under a 5.5 financing than the state bond package, but we also know that the financial risks are greater. Acceptance of the state financing package provides a predictable structure for repayment that doesn't expose the ratepayer to significant risk. Acceptance of the state financing package provides sewer capacity in the northern part of the county that will not require other rate hikes to build. Acceptance of the state bond package enables the city to meet its obligations to the Public Service Commission and the Flowing Springs project at a lower cost to ratepayers. And acceptance of the state financing package will facilitate the more timely equalization of rates in a consolidated utility system. In other words, there are lots of financial reasons to accept the state financing, but there are also a number of environmental reasons to not like the Rockwell project. And Council said as much when it approved a resolution in opposition to the project. But when it comes to financing the project, Council voted 5-3 in favor of the state financing, and I am highly recommending you do the same. As noted earlier, we are asking you to assist City Council in carrying out its wishes for the city by doing what you were created to do. Be a conduit for financing to fund important city projects. So with that, turn it back to the group.
And I guess, then we're up for discussion amongst the group at that point.
Well, does anybody have anything to say?
Well, I think that the options are, I think as City Council said last night, multiple times, all the options are terrible.
Yeah.
It seems to me that no matter how whether we finance a line, whether it's a 5.5 option or whatever you call that thing, that basically this isn't the way that Rockwell's going to be stopped. They're just going to build a line and then we're going to pay for it. So I think all the options are terrible in this case. I hope there's another way to stop Rockwell because it doesn't seem like this is it.
There's been several issues that have come up. There's been so much information that has come out of all this. It's been a learning process, I guess, for everyone. But, I always go back to the simple things. And, Webster's definition of democracy is government by the people, especially rule of the majority. I don't see how we're serving that piece. I realize I'm not elected, but still, and I realize what you're saying, Mr. Hennessy, about the responsibilities of the building commission, but probably that got blurred a long time ago when this came up to be part of what the building commission was given to do. So having said that, I just cannot feel like this is the place to put the position to put the people they've spoken. One of the things that came up that was very interesting to me, Sammy Brown said last night that she is there to legislate the changes we need to make. Well, good for her, but we need to give her some ideas. Because one of the things that came up that you cannot sign a petition to hand to the city council if you're not a landowner. This is 2019. I can't believe that. you want some signs, put that in a sign. I mean, seriously, that's no sense. But there's been so much said, and I think I just made it clear how I feel about it, so.
I've spent a lot of time studying this project, and I've taken into consideration all the different ways, and I've talked to people about it, and I understand the recommendation coming from the city. We have taken on the sewer system from PSD, from Ranson, and we have had those goals in mind as to how we want to develop that for the future. This system that we currently have, in the discovery that I've researched and have found, is that, and even they mentioned it last night, is that we have a sewer system that is a bunch of separate little strings out there. More pump stations than needed, more lines than needed, lines running side by side. And it is the city council's, and it is the objective to gather those in to make it an appropriate system. What's before us is we're trying to create a hub of a line that would go up Route 9 to service that area. Not just for Rockwell itself, but a hub that different communities can connect into, including Rockwell. And what the $10 million bond does is it creates a pipe big enough that goes all the way up Route 9 to that location that other developments can hook into. The cost of that is $10 million. Do we pay for that now with a bond from the state, or do we pay for that out of our ratepayers? Now, if we create this pipe, this large pipe, and it goes up Route 9, and it has a hub, and all the different developments that are planned to go up there in the development stages, that they're looking at building more houses, the Burr Industrial Complex and others connecting to it, this gives the opportunity to do that. Otherwise, if we don't take the $10 million bond, we will eventually have to build that ourselves, whether Rockwell builds theirs or not. Rockwell is saying, if we don't take the bond, that they're going to use 5.5. We've seen the letter. They've invoked that. So they will most likely build the pipe that's just big enough for them, not for any growth, not for any future development, not for the future of the county, not for the future of the city. They will build for themselves. And then we will be stuck later on building for the rest of them as we grow. Because they're not going to build a big pipe, they're going to build what they need. That will increase rates. The other aspect of it is, if they build it themselves, there are costs that come in that we lose for our public services. The O&M that we talked about is lost for a large amount of time. It cost us $325K, but I believe the O&M, as from the documents that have been provided in packets from to the Charlestown Council in the past, it will cost us $2.4 million in expenses if we go 5.5. Whereas if we don't go that route, the bond will cover. So we have this $1 million of the study that came across already from Ranson, plus we would have another potential $2.4 million that we would have to cover, and there's other expenses as well. And asking some of the projections, and these aren't official because I don't have them in a document, but some of the officials over the 10 to 25 years could be $6 million that this could cost the city. When you got $6 million, I don't think that the city council can go next door to Bank of Charlestown and say, can I have a $6 million check, please? It just doesn't work that way. So who has to pay for that? And eventually ratepayers, it goes up. So my personal rates have already gone up. January 1st, I went up 20 cents. It was a surprise to me. I wasn't ready for that. But in the very extensive spreadsheets that I keep at home for the past so many years that I've been here, this is something that I've noticed. So now, am I as a ratepayer ready to pay another 42 cents per thousand to another $1.25 per thousand to pay for a pipe for Rockwell? And I don't think that that's really fair on the taxpayers, the ratepayers that are here, to be able to do that. Because that just sends our utilities through the roof, and they're pretty high already. And that's, you know, that's not the only expense that would come along. There'd be other rates, there's other projects. We'd have to add more money for other issues, right? Adding more developments and things. So to be able to take a $10 million bond and put a large pipe going up Route 9 that would be a hub that would satisfy the needs of all the growth up into that area, I think for our ratepayers, we should take the $10 million bond and not put the over $3.4 million that we know of right now, plus whatever's above that, onto the ratepayers. And that's kind of my thoughts on that. We all hear the complaints about we don't want our taxes going up, we don't want this going up or that going up. Our government's raising everything, but this is our opportunity to be able to keep everything in check with the state and accepting the $10 million.
Well, you know, at some point, I still see the say no to Rockwell signs, and I think that's past tense. And you know, whatever avenue you take. But every month I get my art magazine, and almost every month there's an article in there about if it's too good to be true, it probably is. No way the present, including Rockwell, there's no way that the line is going to pay for itself in 25 years. So that $16 million or 10 and a half or whatever it comes to, there is no free money.
Well, the state has promised it. I mean, the state's forgiving that after 25 years.
And again, I am not an elected official, but our mayor sat here last night and said he didn't trust any of that.
Well.
To me, if I was in a financial deal and had put that money out there, I'm already working on who's going to be there next beside Rockwell. Right. And this all turned into not a Rockwell thing, it turned into a land use thing. Right. And I think that's what we're looking at, and that's what we're voting on, is a land use issue. Yes.
So I don't necessarily believe that it's our position to vote on a land use issue. That's Ranson's land, to their stuff to handle. What's in front of us is the bond. It's really, we're focused on the bond. Are we taking the bond, or are we going the route of 5.5? And that's really the only thing in front of us. The rest of it, it's already been in the decision of other people. It's whether they've, quiet please, it's already been in the hands of other people. It's their decision, not ours to make. Our decision is strictly on this bond. If we read the resolution right here, it's on the acceptance of this bond. Now, I'm not happy with necessarily with Rockwell as far as a company coming into the backyard here, but it's here. You've already said that as well. Quiet, please. It's already been here. They've broken ground, they've been working on it, and we need to manage this the best we can for our city. Now, we kind of were given this thing from Ranson, and the city council last night even tried to state that they wanted the due diligence to be put on the attorney that brought it over from Ranson to Charlestown. Kind of think the city was responsible in some of that due diligence themselves and not just the lawyers. It was in the paperwork. If it was missed, if it was seen, if it was brought up, it's there. But this was brought across from Ranson. It was agreed upon, it was accepted by the city that we would take on the sewage. It's now in our hands. It's now ours to deal with. So as the city of Charlestown, we need to do this in the best for the ratepayers. And we've been told that the capacity is there. We've been told everything can be handled. There is new development already planned. Ranson had already planned that other hookups would go into this hub, not just Rockwell. There are developments. I believe there's 5 or 6 developments in that area that are going to hook up to this hub. So it's not just affecting Rockwell, it's affecting those developments as well. So we build this hub, and we put this up Route 9, and development over here gets to connect to it with their 100 houses. And this development over here gets to connect to it with their 100 houses. And we've supplied those then customers with being able to build the pipe that can handle that capacity. That's what taking the $10 million bond will do. So I understand it's very emotional. I understand there's a lot of thoughts out there, but our task is strictly 5-5 or the bond. And that's really it. If we're looking outside of that, then we're accepting the emotions.
Well, I'm not a real emotional guy, but I don't agree with you on that piece. But, you know, we all have opinions, and once again, I like to keep things simple, and the majority has spoken, but the truth is that I just stand with what I said, and whether that was the job of the building commission, you know, when I first came to the building commission, I think I asked 3 times at meetings, what was the job of the building commission? And I'm still not sure.
We paint windowsills. We paint windowsills and we get HVAC quotes, I think.
Yes, and pleased to volunteer and help in any way I can, but I'm here and I feel the way I feel, so
Yeah.
that's really pretty much it. You know, we've beaten this dog about as hard as we can beat it, but I am where I am.
So if we don't accept the bond, if we say no and we send it to 5-5,
That's not what happens.
the monies, it would go back to city council. Somehow they're still going to have to provide this pipe, and they're going to have to get money to do that. Now, they've said the $325K, that could be larger. We lose monies for the O&M. That's, you know, more money, right? So it's not necessarily the taxpayers, but if we go back to the utility board and we tell them they have to take on this bond, they've already got $40 million in bonds. And if they take on more bonds, they get downgraded. The city can be downgraded. It'd be just like you and I taking on too much debt, and then our credit rating goes down, and then we can't take on anymore. And then you have these other projects that come along, and you can't get any more money. So now you're stuck. So the reason it came through the building commission is because that doesn't affect us. We do have the bonds, but we don't have limits on bonds. And that's the reason that it's coming to us, and it's not going through CTUB itself. So from the aspect of just having this pipe and building it for capacity and building it for the smart growth of the future, we have the issue of if we put it back to CTUB and they have to go on their own, we're, in a sense, wrecking the credit rating.
Yeah,
And
let's
that
be clear.
cripples us.
We're not certain that it would.
We're not
affect.
certain.
I mean,
We're
it
not certain.
could. It's likely that, again, it's the bondholders and the risk of the bondholders that's really the issue that might be driving putting it back over to the utility board.
Right.
Again, it could have an implication. I don't think we know that it would, though.
I think, to me, the bottom line is, if we took a financial hit, which is the financial hit you're talking about, whatever that looks like, needing to reimburse Rockwell for their own pipeline and paying for the design work that Branson did, I think that it may well be worth it if it was going to stop Rockwell. But I'm afraid it's not. It's not going to stop Rockwell, and we take that financial hit, and there's got to be a way to alter that development that's happening out there. I just don't think this is the way to do it.
Right, because letting utilities dictate growth is not smart growth.
Bill, do you have anything to say?
I'm letting you guys do it.
Hey, thanks.
No, I've been following my neighbor's thoughts here on this, and we've talked about it, and I pretty much agree with him on it. So,
Discussion's over, then I say it's time for you to vote.
all right, if the discussion is over, does anybody have anything more to add? Then I suppose we should vote. How do we phrase vote? Is it?
You're ready to vote. All in favor and all opposed?
It's on
Already read the whole thing, so you're good to go.
of
You're in
the,
favor of the motion.
yeah, we're all those in favor of the motion. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
So motion approved 3-1.
3-1.
All right. Any other business?
No, nothing on this.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
What happened? We didn't hear what just happened very clearly at all. Can you please at least repeat what you just
It's fine.
You voted to approve.
We voted 3-1 to approve.
All right. Excuse me, ma'am. All right. Did we have a motion on the floor to adjourn?
We did,
Adjourn.
and we
Did it?
Yes.
and approved.
Yep.
Yeah, we voted
Approved. Okay, then we are adjourned.
Adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you.